Sorry, boys. This party is only for close friends and family, Evelyn said, blocking the door with a forced smile. Inside, her son was blowing out the candles. The twins were on the porch, holding their own handmade birthday cards. It was their birthday, too. They sat on the sidewalk, heads down. Suddenly, a pickup truck pulled up. Their father stepped out. "Daddy!" He looked at the closed door and then at his sad children. He didn't raise his voice. He simply smiled. "Boys, take a look in the backyard." They ran back and froze in awe. A huge party was waiting for them. "The party in there is over," their father said. "Yours is just beginning. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel and let's get started. Please don't go, Dad." Mark Henderson stood in the doorway of his house on a Monday morning in early June. His son Ben held onto his arm with both small hands. The boy's green eyes were wet with tears. Mark felt his chest tighten. "I have to work, buddy," Mark said quietly. "I'll be back by Friday, I promise." Ben did not let go. His twin brother Jake stood a few feet behind him. Jake did not cry. He just watched his father with a blank face. Mark noticed how thin both boys looked. Their clothes hung loose on their small bodies. Jake had dark circles under his eyes. Ben's hair needed cutting. Mark felt a wave of guilt wash over him. "Come on, Ben. Let your father go to work." Evelyn's voice came from the kitchen. She sounded annoyed. Mark looked past his sons and saw his wife standing by the stove. She was making scrambled eggs and bacon. Her son Trevor sat at the kitchen table with a full plate in front of him. Jake and Ben had bowls of plain cereal with no milk at their spots. Mark walked into the kitchen. He kissed the top of Trevor's head. Trevor was 8 years old, the same age as the twins. He had blonde hair like his mother. He wore new clothes and expensive sneakers. He did not look up from his breakfast. "Why does Trevor get eggs and the boys get cereal?" Mark asked. Evelyn turned around and smiled. "Trevor has a big test at school today. He needs protein to focus. The twins are fine with cereal. They like cereal." Mark looked at Jake and Ben. They did not say anything. They sat down at the table and ate their dry cereal with spoons. Mark wanted to argue, but he was tired. He had been driving freight trucks across Texas for 20 years. He was 42 years old and his body hurt all the time. Every Monday he left Austin and drove to Dallas, San Antonio, Houston, or El Paso. He delivered machine parts, furniture, and equipment. He came home every Friday night exhausted. The job paid for their 3-bedroom house near Zilker Park. It paid for food and clothes and bills, but it kept him away from his sons. Mark sat down next to Jake. He noticed a dark purple bruise on the boy's forearm. His stomach dropped. "Jake, what happened to your arm?" Jake pulled his sleeve down quickly. "I fell." "You fell?" "Yes, outside. I fell on the sidewalk." Evelyn nodded from the stove. "He was running too fast. I told him to be careful." Mark stared at his son. Jake would not look at him. The boy kept his eyes on his cereal bowl. Mark reached out and gently touched Jake's shoulder. Jake flinched. Mark's hand froze in the air. "Jake? I'm fine, Dad." Mark turned to Ben. The younger twin was even quieter than his brother. Ben used to sing all the time. He used to draw pictures and tell stories, but now he barely spoke. He just sat at the table staring at his cereal. "Ben, look at me." Ben did not move. "Ben." Slowly, Ben lifted his head. His eyes were red. He looked scared. Mark felt something twist in his chest. Something was very wrong. "Are you okay, buddy?" Ben nodded quickly. Then he looked at Evelyn. Evelyn was watching them with her arms crossed. "Of course he's okay," she said. "You worry too much, Mark. The boys are fine. They're just shy." Mark did not believe her. He had been noticing things for months, small things. Evelyn bought new clothes for Trevor but never for Jake and Ben. She made Trevor's favorite meals but ignored what the twins liked. She let Trevor stay up late but sent Jake and Ben to bed at 7 o'clock. When Mark asked about it, Evelyn always had excuses. She said the twins were picky. She said they grew too fast for new clothes. She said they needed more sleep than Trevor. Mark wanted to believe her. He was so tired, he needed help. After his first wife Rebecca died in a car accident 3 years ago, Mark had been drowning. Rebecca was the love of his life. She was warm and patient and kind. When she died, Mark broke into pieces. The twins were only 5 years old. They cried for their mother every night. Mark worked longer routes to avoid the empty house. He buried his pain in exhaustion. Then he met Evelyn at a church grief support group in Austin. She seemed kind and loving. She had a son named Trevor whose father had left before he was born. Evelyn said she understood Mark's pain. She said she wanted to help. Mark believed her. They married 10 months after meeting. That was 2 years ago. At first, everything seemed fine, but slowly, things changed. Evelyn was different when Mark was not home. He could feel it. His sons were different too. They used to run to him when he came home on Fridays. Now they just stood in the doorway and stared. They used to smile. Now they looked afraid. Mark stood up from the table. He made a decision. "I need to run an errand before I leave," he said. Evelyn frowned. "You're already late. It won't take long." Mark drove to an electronics store on the other side of Austin. He walked through the aisles until he found what he needed. Security cameras. Small cameras with an app he could download on his phone. He bought 4 of them. The cashier put them in a bag. Mark drove home. Evelyn was vacuuming the living room when Mark walked in. Trevor was playing a video game on the couch. Jake and Ben were sitting on the floor in the corner of the room. They were not playing. They were just sitting. Mark unplugged the vacuum. Evelyn looked at him. "What are you doing?" Mark pulled the cameras out of the bag. "I'm installing security cameras." Evelyn's face changed. "Why?" "For safety, to watch for burglars." "We don't need cameras. I want them." Mark set up the first camera in the living room. He pointed it toward the couch and the corner where his sons sat. Then he installed a camera in the kitchen, one in the hallway, one at the front door. He downloaded the app on his phone and connected all 4 cameras. He tested them. They worked. Evelyn watched him the whole time. She looked annoyed, but she did not say no. When Mark finished, he sat down with Jake and Ben. Trevor was still playing his video game. The sound was loud. Explosions and music filled the room. Jake and Ben sat silently. "Your birthday is in 3 days, Mark said. June 15th. You're going to be 8 years old." The twins did not smile. "We can celebrate when I get home on Friday," Mark continued. "We can have cake, maybe invite some friends over." Jake looked at the floor. Ben's eyes filled with tears. "What's wrong?" Mark asked. "Nothing," Jake whispered. Mark pulled both boys into a hug. They felt so small in his arms, so fragile. He kissed the tops of their heads. "I love you both. You know that, right?" Jake nodded. Ben started crying. "Please don't go, Dad," Ben said again. Mark's throat tightened. He wanted to stay. He wanted to call his boss and quit. But he had bills to pay, a mortgage, a family to support. "I'll be home by Friday, I promise." Ben clung to his neck. Mark gently pulled the boy's arms away. He stood up and grabbed his truck keys. Evelyn walked him to the door. "Drive safe," she said. Mark did not answer. He walked out to his truck. It was a big freight truck with a sleeping cabin in the back. He climbed into the driver's seat and started the engine. He looked back at the house. Jake and Ben stood in the front window. They pressed their hands against the glass. Mark waved. They did not wave back. He put the truck in gear and drove away. He watched the house disappear in his rearview mirror. His chest felt heavy. Something was wrong. He knew it, but he did not know what. He did not know how bad it really was. The house grew smaller and smaller until it was gone. Inside, Evelyn closed the front door. She locked it. Then she turned around. Jake and Ben stood in the hallway. They looked at her with wide, scared eyes. Evelyn smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was cold. "Go to your room." Evelyn's voice was sharp. Jake took Ben's hand and pulled him toward the stairs. They walked quickly. They did not run. Running made Evelyn angry. They climbed the stairs and went into their shared bedroom. The door closed behind them. Trevor stayed in the living room playing his video game. Evelyn watched her son for a moment. Then she walked into the kitchen and started washing dishes. Mark drove his truck onto Interstate 35 heading north toward Dallas. The morning sun was bright. Traffic was heavy. He gripped the steering wheel and tried to focus on the road, but his mind kept going back to his sons. The way Ben had cried, the way Jake had flinched, the bruise on Jake's arm. Mark's phone was mounted on the dashboard. He had the camera app downloaded. He could check it any time, but he told himself to wait. He needed to focus on driving. He needed to deliver his load to Dallas. The warehouse was expecting him by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The drive took 4 hours. Mark listened to the radio. He stopped once at a rest stop to use the bathroom and buy coffee. By 2 o'clock, he pulled into a large warehouse on the east side of Dallas. Workers helped him unload boxes of machine parts. The work was hard. Mark's back hurt. Sweat soaked through his shirt. By 5 o'clock, the truck was empty. Mark parked at a rest stop outside Dallas. He would sleep in his truck cabin tonight. Tomorrow he had another delivery in San Antonio. He climbed into the back of the truck where there was a small bed and a cooler. He ate a sandwich and drank water. Then he pulled out his phone. He wanted to call home. He wanted to hear his sons' voices. He dialed the house number. It rang 3 times. Evelyn answered. "Hello? It's me. I'm in Dallas. I finished the delivery." "Okay. Can I talk to the boys?" There was a pause. Mark heard the television in the background. "They're doing homework right now," Evelyn said. "It'll only take a minute." "Mark, they need to focus. You know how school is. If they get distracted, they won't finish." Mark felt frustrated. "Just put Ben on for a second." "I said no. Call tomorrow." The line went dead. Evelyn had hung up. Mark stared at his phone. His chest felt tight. Something was not right. He opened the camera app. His finger hovered over the icon. Then he closed the app. He told himself he was being paranoid. He told himself to trust his wife. He put the phone down and lay on the bed. Sleep did not come easily. Back in Austin, Jake and Ben sat at the small desk in their bedroom. They were doing math homework. The problems were hard. Jake tried to help Ben, but he did not understand them either. They had been sitting there for 2 hours. Their backs hurt. Their stomachs were empty. Evelyn had given them each 1 slice of bread and a glass of water for dinner. Trevor had eaten chicken nuggets and French fries in the living room. There was a knock on the door. The boys froze. The door opened. Evelyn stood in the doorway. She looked at their homework. "Are you done?" "Almost," Jake said quietly. "You're too slow. Trevor finished his homework an hour ago." "We're trying." Evelyn walked over and looked at their papers. "These answers are wrong." "I'm sorry," Jake said. "Sorry doesn't fix it. You're both stupid, just like your mother was." Ben's eyes filled with tears. Jake squeezed his hand under the desk. "Our mom wasn't stupid," Jake whispered. Evelyn's face went cold. She grabbed Jake's math paper and ripped it in half. "Don't talk back to me. You'll do the whole assignment again. Both of you." She walked out and slammed the door. They heard the lock click. Evelyn had locked them inside. Jake looked at his torn paper. His hands shook. Ben started crying silently. Jake put his arm around his brother. "It's okay," Jake whispered. "We'll redo it. It's okay." But it was not okay. The next morning, Mark woke up at 6 o'clock. He drove south toward San Antonio. The delivery was furniture for a hotel. He arrived at noon. Workers unloaded the truck. Mark waited in the heat. By 4 o'clock, he was done. He drove to a rest stop near San Antonio and parked. He was exhausted. His body ached. He called home again. Evelyn answered on the first ring. "Hello? It's me. I'm in San Antonio." "Okay. Can I talk to Jake and Ben?" "They're already asleep." Mark looked at his watch. It was only 6 o'clock in the evening. "Asleep? It's 6 o'clock." They were tired. I put them to bed early. "Evelyn, I haven't talked to them in 2 days." "They're fine, Mark. Stop worrying. You'll be home in 3 days anyway." I just want to hear their voices. I'm not waking them up. Call tomorrow." She hung up again. Mark felt anger rise in his chest. Why would she not let him talk to his sons? What was she hiding? He opened the camera app. This time he did not close it. He tapped the icon for the living room camera. The screen loaded. Mark saw his living room. Trevor was on the couch watching television. Evelyn was sitting next to him scrolling on her phone. Mark did not see Jake or Ben. He switched to the kitchen camera. Empty. He switched to the hallway camera. Empty. Where were his sons? Mark scrolled back through the recorded footage. The app saved videos from the past 72 hours. He went back to Monday afternoon, right after he had left. His hands started shaking as he watched. The video showed Evelyn in the kitchen. Jake and Ben were cleaning dishes. Trevor was playing his video game. Evelyn was yelling. Mark turned up the volume on his phone. "You missed a spot. Wash it again." Jake picked up a plate and washed it again. His small hands struggled with the sponge. "Faster! I don't have all day." Ben dropped a fork. It clattered on the floor. Evelyn spun around. She grabbed Ben by the hair and yanked his head back. Ben cried out in pain. "Pick it up!" Ben bent down and picked up the fork with shaking hands. Evelyn let go of his hair. Mark felt sick. His vision blurred. He could not believe what he was seeing. He kept watching. The video jumped to Monday night. Evelyn was in the kitchen making dinner. She cooked steak and mashed potatoes. She put a full plate in front of Trevor. Then she put a single bowl of plain white rice on the table. Jake and Ben sat down. They stared at the rice. They did not complain. They picked up their spoons and ate in silence. Trevor ate his steak and laughed at something on his tablet. He did not look at the twins. Mark's stomach turned. He scrolled forward. Tuesday morning. Evelyn made pancakes for Trevor. She gave Jake and Ben each one piece of toast. No butter, no jam, just dry toast. Tuesday afternoon. Evelyn told the twins to clean Trevor's room. They picked up his toys and made his bed while Trevor sat on the couch. Tuesday night. Evelyn locked Jake and Ben in their bedroom at 7 o'clock. Mark could see them through the hallway camera. They sat on their bed holding each other. Mark's hands were shaking so hard he almost dropped his phone. Rage filled his chest. How had he not seen this? How had he let this happen? He wanted to scream. He wanted to drive home right now and take his sons away. But he forced himself to breathe. He forced himself to think. He needed a plan. He needed evidence. The boy's birthday was June 15th. That was 3 days away. Friday. He needed to see what Evelyn would do on their birthday. He needed to see everything. Mark saved all the video clips to his phone. Then he opened his contacts and scrolled to his lawyer's name. David Chen. David had helped Mark with paperwork when he bought his house. Mark trusted him. But it was late. Almost 9 o'clock at night. He would call David tomorrow. Mark lay back on his bed in the truck cabin. He stared at the ceiling. His mind was racing. He thought about Rebecca, his first wife, the love of his life. If she were alive, this would never have happened. Rebecca would have protected their sons. She would have seen through Evelyn immediately. But Rebecca was gone. She died 3 years ago when a drunk driver hit her car. Mark had been so broken after her death that he made terrible decisions. He rushed into marriage with Evelyn because he was desperate. He wanted his sons to have a mother. He ignored every red flag, and now his boys were suffering because of him. Mark closed his eyes. He made a promise to himself. He would fix this. He would protect his sons. He would make Evelyn pay for what she had done. His phone buzzed. A notification from the camera app. Movement detected in the hallway. Mark opened the app. He saw Evelyn walking down the hall. She stopped at Jake and Ben's door. She unlocked it and looked inside. Then she closed the door and locked it again. She walked away. Mark's jaw tightened. He watched the screen until Evelyn disappeared into her own bedroom. Then he switched to the view of Jake and Ben's room. The boys were asleep in their small bed. They were holding each other. Their faces looked pale in the darkness. Mark whispered to the screen, "I'm coming. I promise. Daddy's coming." Mark did not sleep that night. He lay in his truck cabin staring at his phone. He watched the camera feed for hours. The house was dark. Everyone was asleep. But Mark could not stop watching. He kept checking on Jake and Ben's room. The boys were curled up together in their small bed. Mark's heart ached. At 6 o'clock Wednesday morning, Mark started driving. His next delivery was in El Paso. That was an 8-hour drive from San Antonio. He needed to deliver equipment to a construction company. Mark drove west on Interstate 10. The Texas landscape stretched out around him. Flat land, dry brush, empty sky. Mark barely noticed. His mind was somewhere else. He thought about calling the police. But what would he say? My wife is mean to my sons? She feeds them rice instead of steak? The police might not take it seriously. He needed more evidence. He needed to see what Evelyn would do on the boy's birthday. That was 2 days away. Friday, June 15th. Mark's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He would watch and wait. Then he would act. Mark stopped twice for gas and food. Each time, he checked the camera app. At 10 o'clock in the morning, he saw Evelyn making breakfast. She gave Trevor pancakes with syrup and butter. She put 2 plain pieces of toast in front of Jake and Ben. Mark's jaw clenched. He saved the video to his phone. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Mark saw Evelyn vacuuming the living room. Jake and Ben were cleaning the bathroom. Trevor was outside playing in the yard. Mark watched his sons scrub the toilet and sink. They were 8 years old. They should be playing, not cleaning. Mark saved that video too. Mark arrived in El Paso at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The construction site was on the edge of the city. Workers helped him unload metal beams and tools. The work took 3 hours. By 7 o'clock, Mark was done. He drove to a truck stop and parked. He bought a sandwich from the convenience store and sat in his cabin. He was exhausted, but he could not rest. He called home. Evelyn answered. "Hello? It's me. I'm in El Paso." "Okay. Can I please talk to the boys? I haven't spoken to them since Monday." "Mark, they're eating dinner right now. I'll wait." "No, they need to eat and then do their homework. You're being ridiculous. You'll see them on Friday." "Evelyn, I just want to hear their voices for 1 minute. Stop being dramatic. They're fine. I have to go." She hung up. Mark threw his phone on the bed. He wanted to scream. He wanted to drive home right now. But El Paso was 9 hours from Austin. If he left now, he would not arrive until 4 o'clock in the morning. He needed to be smart. He needed to wait. Mark opened the camera app again. He watched the live feed. Evelyn was in the kitchen. Trevor was eating spaghetti and meatballs. Jake and Ben were at the table with bowls of plain pasta. No sauce, no meatballs, just noodles. Ben was crying quietly. Evelyn ignored him. Mark felt rage build in his chest. He forced himself to breathe. He kept watching. At 8 o'clock, Evelyn sent Jake and Ben to their room. She locked the door. Mark watched them through the hallway camera. They went inside and sat on their bed. Jake pulled out a piece of paper and some old crayons. He started drawing something. Ben watched. Mark switched to a different camera. Evelyn was on the phone in the living room. Trevor was playing video games next to her. Mark turned up the volume. "Yes, I need the delivery tomorrow," Evelyn said into the phone. "Thursday afternoon, between 2 and 4 o'clock. There was a pause. "The address is 43 Oak Street, Austin, Texas." Another pause. "Perfect. Thank you." Evelyn hung up. She smiled. Trevor looked at her. "Is everything coming tomorrow, Mom?" "Yes, baby. Everything for your party." "The bouncy castle, too?" "The bouncy castle, the decorations, the cake, everything. Your party is going to be perfect." Trevor grinned. "I can't wait." Mark's stomach dropped. A party? Evelyn was planning a party for Trevor? Mark scrolled through his phone calendar. Trevor's birthday was not until August. Why would Evelyn throw him a party now? Then Mark realized, Friday was June 15th, the twins' birthday. Evelyn was throwing Trevor a party on Jake and Ben's birthday. Mark felt like he had been punched in the chest. He could not breathe. He stared at his phone screen. Trevor was still talking. "How many kids are coming, Mom?" 30, all your friends from school and the neighborhood. "And we're getting a magician?" "Yes, and face painting and a gaming truck. You're going to have the best party ever." "What about Jake and Ben?" Evelyn's smile faded. "What about them? Will they be at my party?" "No." "Why not?" "Because the party is for you, not for them. They're not part of our family, Trevor. I've told you that." Trevor shrugged. "Okay." He went back to his video game. Evelyn stood up and walked to the kitchen. Mark felt sick. He wanted to reach through the screen and grab his sons. He wanted to take them far away from Evelyn, far away from this house. Mark opened his text messages. He typed a message to his lawyer, David Chen. "David, I need your help urgently. I need to file for divorce and full custody of my sons. I have video evidence of abuse. Can you call me tomorrow morning?" Mark hit send. Then he opened his browser and started searching. He typed, "Party Planners, Austin, Texas." A list of companies appeared. Mark scrolled through them. He needed to find someone who could help him, someone who could put together a party for his sons. A real party, not the nightmare Evelyn was creating. Mark clicked on a company called Fiesta Dreams. Their website showed pictures of birthday parties, colorful decorations, happy children, smiling families. Mark found their phone number, but it was too late to call. It was almost 9 o'clock at night. He would call them tomorrow. Mark watched the camera feed until midnight. Evelyn went to bed. Trevor went to bed. Jake and Ben were still awake in their locked room. Mark watched them through the grainy camera. Jake was showing Ben a piece of paper. It was a birthday card. Jake had drawn 2 stick figures holding hands. Above them he had written, "Happy Birthday, Ben," in messy letters. Ben smiled. He showed Jake his own card. It had 2 stick figures too. "Happy Birthday, Jake," was written at the top. Mark's eyes filled with tears. His sons were making birthday cards for each other because no one else would. They had stopped hoping for anything more. They had learned to rely only on each other. Mark wiped his eyes. He took a screenshot of the video. He saved it to his phone. "I'm going to fix this," Mark whispered to the screen. "I promise." Thursday morning arrived. Mark woke at 5 o'clock. He had only slept 2 hours. His body ached, his head pounded, but he forced himself to get up. He washed his face in the truck stop bathroom. He drank coffee. He checked the camera app. At 7 o'clock, Evelyn woke up. She made breakfast for Trevor, eggs and bacon. She gave Jake and Ben each a granola bar. Mark saved the video. At 9 o'clock, Mark's phone rang. It was David Chen. "Mark, I got your text. What's going on?" Mark explained everything. He told David about Evelyn's cruelty. He told him about the camera footage. He told him about the party. David listened without interrupting. "Mark, this is serious. This is child abuse. You need to get your sons out of that house." "I know, but I'm 9 hours away. I can't get home until tonight." "Can you send me the videos?" "Yes, I'll send them now." "Good. I'll start preparing divorce papers immediately. I'll also file for emergency custody. We can get this done fast." "How fast?" "I can have papers ready by tomorrow morning. But Mark, you need to get home as soon as possible. Don't wait. I'm leaving right now." Mark hung up. He sent David all the saved videos. Then he started his truck and pulled out of the parking lot. But he did not drive toward Austin. Not yet. He had one more call to make. He dialed the number for Fiesta Dreams. A woman answered. "Fiesta Dreams Party Planning, this is Rosa speaking." "Hi, Rosa. My name is Mark Henderson. I need your help. It's an emergency." "What kind of emergency?" Mark's voice shook. "My sons are turning 8 years old tomorrow, June 15th, but my wife is throwing a party for her son instead. She's ignoring my boys. She locked them out of their own birthday. I need you to help me give them a real party. I don't care what it costs." There was silence on the other end. Then Rosa spoke. Her voice was thick with emotion. "Tell me what you need." Mark started talking. He told Rosa everything he wanted. A DJ, food, cakes shaped like Iron Man and Captain America because his sons loved superheroes, decorations, games, everything. Rosa listened. She wrote it all down. "When do you need this?" Rosa asked. "Tomorrow, Friday afternoon." "That's very short notice." "I know. Please, I'm begging you. My sons deserve a real birthday." Rosa was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I have 2 sons myself. I can't imagine anyone treating children this way. We'll do it. Give me your address." Mark gave her the address. Rosa told him the party would cost $3,000. Mark did not hesitate. He gave her his credit card information over the phone. Rosa promised her team would arrive at his house by 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon. "Thank you," Mark said. "Thank you so much." "You're a good father," Rosa said softly. "Your boys are lucky to have you." Mark hung up. Then he started driving toward Austin. He had 9 hours to get home. 9 hours until he could hold his sons again. 9 hours until he could end this nightmare. Mark's truck rumbled down Interstate 10 heading east, but he was still in West Texas, still hours from Austin. He looked at his phone mounted on the dashboard. The camera app was open. He had been watching it since he started driving. He kept one eye on the road and one eye on the screen. It was Thursday afternoon, 2 o'clock. At the house in Austin, a large delivery truck pulled up to the driveway. Mark watched through the front door camera. 2 men got out and opened the back of the truck. They started unloading boxes. Big boxes. Evelyn came outside smiling. Trevor ran out behind her. Mark could not hear what they were saying. The cameras did not have audio from outside, but he could see everything. The delivery men carried a folded, bouncy castle into the garage. They brought boxes labeled "party supplies" and "decorations." They rolled in a huge box that said "professional sound system." The last thing they unloaded was a large white box with a bakery logo. The cake. Trevor was jumping up and down. Evelyn hugged him. The delivery men got back in their truck and drove away. Evelyn and Trevor went inside. Mark switched to the living room camera. "This is going to be the best party ever!" Trevor shouted. "Of course it is, baby. You deserve the best." Evelyn kissed the top of his head. "Can I see the cake?" "Not yet. It's a surprise." Trevor ran upstairs. Evelyn started opening boxes in the living room. She pulled out streamers, balloons, and banners. Everything was blue and green. Dinosaur decorations. Trevor's favorite. Mark switched to the hallway camera. He saw Jake and Ben's bedroom door. It was closed. He knew it was locked. The boys had been in there since morning. Evelyn had given them cereal for breakfast and told them to stay in their room. Mark had watched it happen. He had almost driven off the road because his hands were shaking so hard. Mark forced himself to focus. He had 7 more hours of driving. He could not afford to crash. His sons needed him. The afternoon passed slowly. Mark stopped once for gas. He did not eat. His stomach was too tight. He kept checking the cameras. Evelyn spent hours decorating the backyard. She hung streamers on the fence. She set up tables and chairs. She inflated balloons. Trevor helped her. They laughed together. They looked like a happy family. Jake and Ben stayed in their room. Mark watched them through the camera. They sat on their bed talking quietly. Jake showed Ben the birthday card he had made. Ben showed Jake his card. They hugged each other. Mark's eyes burned. He wiped them quickly. He needed to see the road. At 6 o'clock Thursday evening, Evelyn unlocked the boys' door. Mark watched through the hallway camera. Evelyn stood in the doorway. "Come eat dinner." Jake and Ben followed her downstairs. In the kitchen there was food on the table. Evelyn had ordered pizza. 3 large boxes sat on the counter. Trevor was already eating. He had 3 slices on his plate. Evelyn pointed to a small plate with 1 slice of plain cheese pizza. "You 2 can share that." Jake and Ben sat down. They did not argue. They each ate half of the slice. Trevor finished his third piece and grabbed a fourth. He did not look at the twins. "Tomorrow is my party," Trevor said with his mouth full. "I know," Evelyn said. "Everything is ready. The magician will be here at 2:30 p.m. The bouncy castle is set up. All your friends are coming. How many presents do you think I'll get?" "Lots, baby. At least 30. Trevor grinned. Jake and Ben stared at their empty plate. Evelyn saw them looking. "Stop staring. Go back to your room." The boys stood up and walked upstairs. Evelyn locked their door behind them. Mark saved all the videos to his phone. He sent them to David Chen. Night fell. Mark kept driving. He reached San Antonio at 9 o'clock. He was still 3 hours from Austin. He thought about stopping to rest, but he could not. He drank more coffee and kept going. At 11 o'clock Thursday night, Mark finally pulled into Austin, but he did not go home. Not yet. He needed to wait until tomorrow. He needed to catch Evelyn in the act. He needed the world to see what she was doing to his sons. Mark parked his truck at a gas station. He climbed into the back cabin and tried to sleep. His phone was in his hand. The camera app was open. Friday morning, June 15th, the twins' 8th birthday. Mark woke at 5 o'clock. He had barely slept. His whole body ached. But he did not care. Today was the day. Today he would bring his sons home. Mark checked the cameras. The house was still dark. Everyone was asleep. At 6:30, Evelyn woke up. She went downstairs and started making breakfast. Pancakes for Trevor, a granola bar for Jake and Ben. Mark watched. He saved the video. At 7 o'clock, Evelyn unlocked the boys' door. "Get up. Stay in your room today. I don't want to see you." She closed the door and locked it again. Jake and Ben sat on their bed. They whispered to each other. Mark wished he could hear what they were saying. He switched cameras and watched Evelyn. She was on her phone texting people, probably confirming details for the party. At 10 o'clock, the magician arrived. A man in a black suit carrying a bag of tricks. Evelyn let him in and showed him the backyard. At 11 o'clock, workers came to set up the bouncy castle. They plugged it in and it inflated, big and colorful. At noon, a catering truck arrived with hot dogs and chips. Mark sat in his truck at the gas station. He was only 10 minutes from his house, but he waited. He needed to see what Evelyn would do. He needed proof. At 1 o'clock, Evelyn went upstairs. She unlocked Jake and Ben's door. The boys looked up at her. "Come with me." Jake and Ben followed her downstairs. They walked through the kitchen. Mark watched on his phone. His heart pounded. Where was she taking them? Evelyn opened the front door. She pointed outside. "Sit on the sidewalk." "Why?" Jake asked. "Because I said so." "But it's our birthday." Evelyn's face went cold. "This party is not for you. This party is for my real son. You two are mistakes. Your mother is dead. That makes you cursed. Nobody wants to celebrate broken children. Now sit outside and don't move." Ben started crying. Jake took his hand. They walked outside and sat on the concrete sidewalk. Evelyn closed the door. Mark heard the lock click through the camera audio. Mark's vision went red. His hands started shaking. He watched his sons sit on the sidewalk holding their homemade birthday cards. They leaned against each other. Ben's shoulders shook. He was crying. Jake put his arm around him. Mark could not watch anymore. He had seen enough, but he forced himself to keep the app open. He needed to record everything. At 2 o'clock, children started arriving. Parents dropped them off at the front door. Evelyn greeted them with a big smile. She walked them through the house to the backyard. The children ran to the bouncy castle. They jumped and screamed with joy. Music started playing. The party had begun. Jake and Ben sat on the sidewalk. Children walked past them. Some looked at them confused. One boy stopped. "Why are you sitting out here?" "We're not allowed inside," Jake said quietly. "Why not?" Jake did not answer. The boy shrugged and went inside. More children arrived. Cars pulled up and drove away. Parents waved. Nobody asked about the two boys sitting alone on the concrete. At 2:30, The magician started his show. Mark could hear the children clapping and laughing through the camera. He switched to the backyard camera. 30 children sat in chairs watching the magician pull a rabbit from a hat. Trevor sat in the front row grinning. Evelyn stood behind him taking pictures with her phone. Mark switched to the front door camera. Jake and Ben had not moved. They sat holding each other. Their birthday cards were on the ground next to them. A neighbor walked by walking her dog. She looked at the boys. She frowned. But she kept walking. Mark could not take it anymore. He started his truck, but before he pulled out of the gas station, he made a phone call. He dialed his parents in Houston. His mother, Linda, answered. "Mark, is everything okay?" Mark's voice broke. "Mom, I need you and Dad to come to Austin right now." "What's wrong?" "I don't have time to explain. Please just come. I need you. We're leaving right now." Mark hung up. Then he opened his contacts and called David Chen. "David, do you have the papers?" "Yes, I emailed them to you an hour ago. Did you get them?" "I'll check. Can I print them somewhere?" "Any gas station with a printer." "Mark, are you okay?" "No, I'm going to get my sons right now." Mark hung up. He checked his email. David had sent the divorce papers and custody documents. Mark drove to a different gas station with a printing station. He printed everything. His hand shook as the papers came out. He signed them. He got back in his truck. At 3:30, Mark was 5 minutes from his house. He checked the camera app one more time. The party was still going. Children were eating cake now. Trevor was opening presents in the living room. Wrapping paper covered the floor. Trevor held up a new video game and cheered. Mark switched to the front door camera. Jake and Ben were still outside, still sitting, still holding each other. Ben had fallen asleep against Jake's shoulder. Jake stared at nothing. Mark's jaw clenched. He whispered to his phone screen, "I'm almost there, boys." He pressed his foot on the gas pedal and drove toward his house. Mark's truck moved through the streets of Austin. His neighborhood was close now. He passed familiar stores and restaurants, places he had driven past 1,000 times. But today everything looked different. Today he was coming home to save his sons. Mark glanced at his phone. The camera app showed the party still going. 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Children were running in the backyard. The bouncy castle was full of kids jumping and screaming. Trevor stood near the cake table eating another slice. Evelyn was talking to another mother who had come back early to pick up her child. Mark switched to the front door camera. His chest tightened. Jake and Ben were still there, still sitting on the sidewalk. Ben was awake now. Both boys sat with their arms wrapped around their knees. They looked so small, so alone. Mark's phone rang. It was Rosa from Fiesta Dreams. "Mr. Henderson?" "Yes." "We're almost at your address. Where should we park?" Mark thought quickly. "Don't park in front of the house. Park down the street. I don't want my wife to see you yet." "Okay, we have 3 vans. Is there a side entrance to the backyard?" "Yes. There's a gate on the left side of the house. You can set up everything through there." "Perfect. We'll be ready when you arrive." "Thank you, Rosa. We're happy to help." Mark hung up. He was only 2 minutes from his house now. He pulled over on a side street and parked. He needed to see where Rosa's team was. He needed to make sure everything was ready. 1 minute later, 3 white vans drove past him. They had Fiesta Dreams party planning written on the sides in colorful letters. The vans drove down his street and parked 4 houses away from his address. Mark watched as people got out. Rosa was easy to spot. She was a woman in her 40s with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She wore a bright purple shirt with the Fiesta Dreams logo. 5 other people got out with her. They started unloading equipment from the vans. Mark's phone rang again. It was his lawyer, David Chen. "Mark, I've been reviewing the videos you sent me. This is clear evidence of child abuse and neglect. When you get those boys out of that house, Evelyn won't have any legal ground to stand on." "Good. Do you have the divorce papers I sent?" "Yes, I printed them. They're signed." "Perfect. After today, we'll file everything with the court. You'll have full custody within a week." "Thank you, David. Be careful today, Mark. Don't do anything that could be used against you later. Stay calm. Document everything." "I will." Mark hung up. He checked the camera app again. It was 4:15 now. At the house, some parents were starting to arrive to pick up their children. The party would be winding down soon. Mark needed to move fast. He started his truck and drove toward his house. His heart pounded in his chest. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tight his knuckles were white. As Mark got closer, he saw Rosa and her team carrying equipment toward his house. They moved quickly and quietly. They went through the side gate just like Mark had told them. Good. Evelyn would not see them from inside. Mark pulled into his driveway at exactly 4:30. His truck made a loud rumbling sound as he parked. He turned off the engine. For a moment he just sat there. He looked at his house, the house he had bought to keep his family safe, the house that had become a prison for his sons. Mark opened his truck door and stepped out. He looked to his left. Jake and Ben were sitting on the front sidewalk. They had not noticed him yet. Their heads were down. Ben was holding his homemade birthday card. The paper was crumpled and dirty. Jake's card was on the ground next to him. Mark walked toward them. His boots made noise on the concrete. Jake looked up. His eyes went wide. He could not believe what he was seeing. "Dad?" Ben's head snapped up. He stared at Mark. His mouth opened but no sound came out. Mark knelt down in front of them. He looked at their faces. Jake's cheeks were dirty. Ben's eyes were red from crying. They both looked so tired, so sad. Mark felt his throat tighten. He reached out and touched Jake's face. "I'm here," Mark said softly. "I'm here now." Jake's face crumpled. Tears started running down his cheeks. Ben let out a sob and threw his arms around Mark's neck. Mark caught him and held him tight. Jake pressed his face against Mark's chest. Both boys were crying. Mark wrapped his arms around them and held them close. "I'm sorry," Mark whispered. "I'm so sorry I wasn't here. I'm so sorry I left you with her. We thought you weren't coming back," Ben sobbed. "I'm never leaving you again. Never. I promise." Mark pulled back and looked at his sons. He wiped their tears with his thumbs. "Today is your birthday, your real birthday, and I'm going to give you the party you deserve." Jake shook his head. "We don't need a party, Dad. We just want you. You're going to have both." Mark stood up and took both boys by the hand. He led them toward the side of the house. They walked past the front door. Mark did not want to go inside yet. He did not want to see Evelyn. Not yet. They reached the side gate. Mark opened it. Jake and Ben stepped through and stopped. Their eyes went wide. Their mouths fell open. The backyard had been completely transformed. Not the section where Trevor's party was. That was on the right side of the yard. Rosa's team had set up everything on the left side. There were superhero banners hanging everywhere. Spider-Man, Iron Man, Captain America, the Hulk. Tables were set up with red and blue tablecloths. A DJ booth stood in the corner with speakers and colorful lights. 2 huge cakes sat on the main table. One was shaped like Iron Man. The other was shaped like Captain America. Both had Happy 8th Birthday written in frosting. One said Jake. One said Ben. A taco truck was parked in the driveway. The side was open and a man was cooking inside. The smell of meat and tortillas filled the air. A gaming truck was parked next to it. The doors were open, showing screens and gaming chairs inside. Jake and Ben stood frozen. They could not believe what they were seeing. Rosa walked over to them, smiling. "Are you Jake and Ben?" The boys nodded. "Happy birthday. This party is just for you." Ben's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were different tears. Happy tears. Jake looked up at his father. "This is really for us?" "Yes, only for you." Ben hugged Mark's waist. Jake wiped his eyes. Rosa knelt down to their level. "Would you boys like your faces painted? I have superhero designs." Ben looked at Jake. Jake looked at Mark. Mark nodded. "It's okay. You can have fun now." Rosa led the boys to a table where a young woman had face paint set up. Ben pointed to a Captain America design. Jake pointed to Iron Man. The woman started painting Ben's cheek. Ben smiled. It was the first real smile Mark had seen on his son's face in months. Mark's phone buzzed. A text from his father, Robert. "We just passed San Antonio. 1 hour away." Mark texted back, "See you soon." Mark looked at the other side of the backyard. Trevor's party was ending. Parents were collecting their children. Some kids were still in the bouncy castle, but most were leaving. Mark could see Evelyn through the back window. She was in the kitchen putting leftover cake in containers. She had no idea Mark was home. She had no idea what was happening in her own backyard. Mark pulled out his phone and opened his contacts. He scrolled to find the numbers of Jake and Ben's friends from school. He started making calls. The first mother he called was named Jennifer. Her son Tommy was in the same class as Jake. "Hello? Hi, Jennifer. This is Mark Henderson, Jake and Ben's father." "Oh, hi, Mark. Is everything okay? I'm having a last-minute birthday party for the twins. Today is their 8th birthday. Can Tommy come over? Right now?" "Oh, I didn't realize it was their birthday." "Yes, of course. We'll be there in 15 minutes. Mark made 9 more calls. Every parent said yes. They all sounded surprised. Some asked why they had not been invited earlier. Mark did not explain. He just gave them his address and thanked them. Within 20 minutes, children started arriving. Tommy came first with his mother, Jennifer. She hugged Mark. "I'm so glad the boys are having a party. They're such sweet kids." More children arrived, friends from school, neighbors, kids who actually cared about Jake and Ben. They ran to the gaming truck. They got tacos from the food truck. They played with the DJ's equipment. Jake and Ben stood in the middle of it all looking overwhelmed. But they were smiling. They were actually smiling. Mark watched his sons. His heart felt full for the first time in years. But he was not done yet. He still had to deal with Evelyn. He still had to end this nightmare once and for all. Mark looked toward the house. Through the window he saw Evelyn walking toward the back door. She was about to come outside. She was about to see everything. Mark's jaw tightened. He was ready. Evelyn opened the back door and stepped outside. She was carrying a garbage bag full of party trash. Trevor walked behind her, eating a piece of leftover cake. Evelyn turned toward the right side of the yard where the bouncy castle still stood. But then she heard music, loud music, coming from the left side. She froze. Her head turned slowly. Her eyes went wide. The left side of the backyard was full of people. Children were running around. A DJ was playing music. Tables were covered with food. Superhero decorations hung everywhere. 2 large cakes sat on the main table. Evelyn's mouth fell open. Then she saw Jake and Ben. They were standing near the gaming truck with their faces painted. They were smiling, laughing, surrounded by other children. Evelyn's face went white, then red. Her hands started shaking. She dropped the garbage bag. Trevor stopped eating his cake. "Mom, what's that?" Evelyn did not answer. She was looking for someone. Her eyes scanned the crowd. Then she found him. Mark, standing near the taco truck with his arms crossed, looking directly at her. Evelyn's expression changed. Shock turned to rage. She started walking toward Mark. Her steps were fast and angry. Parents noticed her. They stopped talking and watched. The music kept playing, but some of the children stopped running. Mark did not move. He stood still and waited. Evelyn reached him. Her face was twisted with fury. "What is this?" she hissed. "A birthday party. For my sons. You can't just show up and do this. This is my house too. Actually, it's my house. Only my name is on the deed." Evelyn's hands clenched into fists. "You had no right to do this without telling me. You had no right to throw a party for Trevor on the twins' birthday. You had no right to lock my sons outside their own home." Evelyn's face paled. Her eyes darted around. Several parents were listening now. Jennifer, Tommy's mother, had her phone out. She was recording. "I don't know what you're talking about," Evelyn said quickly. "Yes, you do. Mark pulled out his phone. He opened the camera app. He turned the screen toward Evelyn. She saw footage of herself pushing Jake and Ben out the front door. She saw herself locking them outside. The video had sound. Her own voice came through the phone speaker. "This party is for my real son. You two are mistakes." Evelyn's face went from pale to gray. She looked around. More parents were watching now. Some had their phones out, recording, taking pictures. Evelyn tried to grab Mark's phone. He pulled it away. "Don't touch me. That video is fake. You edited it. There are 4 cameras in the house. I have dozens of videos. Would you like me to show everyone?" Evelyn's mouth opened and closed. No words came out. She turned and walked quickly back toward the house. Trevor followed her, looking confused. Mark put his phone away. The parents nearby were whispering to each other. Jennifer walked over to him. "Mark, was that real? Did she really lock the boys outside?" Mark nodded. "Yes. She's been abusing them for months." Jennifer's hand covered her mouth. "Oh my God, those poor babies." Other parents came over. They asked questions. Mark showed them some of the videos. They watched in silence. One father shook his head. One mother started crying. They all looked at Jake and Ben with sad eyes. "We should have noticed," Jennifer said. "We should have seen something was wrong." "It's not your fault," Mark said. "I'm their father, and I didn't see it either, but I see it now. And it's over." The parents nodded. Some hugged Mark. Others went to check on Jake and Ben. The boys were sitting at a table eating tacos. They looked happy but also overwhelmed. Mark walked over to them and sat down. "Are you boys okay?" Jake nodded. "Is Evelyn going to come back out here?" "No, she's staying inside." Ben leaned against Mark's shoulder. "Dad, is she going to hurt us again?" Mark's chest tightened. He put his arm around Ben and pulled Jake close too. "No, she will never hurt you again. I promise." Rosa came over with a microphone from the DJ booth. "Mr. Henderson, should we sing Happy Birthday now?" Mark looked at his sons. "What do you think, boys?" Jake and Ben looked at each other. They had matching Iron Man and Captain America designs painted on their cheeks. They both smiled and nodded. Rosa walked to the DJ booth. The music stopped. She spoke into the microphone. "Everyone, can you please come to the cake table? It's time to sing Happy Birthday to Jake and Ben." The children ran over. Parents gathered around. Mark led his sons to the table with the 2 cakes. Jake stood in front of the Iron Man cake. Ben stood in front of the Captain America cake. 8 candles were stuck in each cake. Rosa lit them with a lighter. The DJ started playing the Happy Birthday song. Everyone sang. Mark sang the loudest. He stood behind his sons with his hands on their shoulders. Jake and Ben looked at the candles. Their eyes reflected the small flames. When the song ended, everyone clapped. "Make a wish," Mark said. Jake and Ben closed their eyes. They were quiet for a moment. Then they opened their eyes and blew out the candles together. Everyone cheered. Rosa started cutting the cakes and handing out pieces. The children ate and talked and laughed. Mark watched his sons. They were sitting at a table with Tommy and 3 other kids from school. They were eating cake and smiling. Real smiles, not forced, not fake. They looked like normal 8-year-old boys. For the first time in months, they looked happy. Mark's phone buzzed. A text from his father, Robert. "Pulling onto your street now." Mark looked toward the driveway. A few seconds later, a silver car pulled up. His parents got out. Linda, his mother, was a short woman with gray hair. Robert, his father, was tall and broad-shouldered. They both looked worried. Mark walked to the side gate and opened it. His parents rushed through. Linda saw Jake and Ben at the table. Her eyes filled with tears. She ran to them. The boys saw her and jumped up. Linda grabbed them both and hugged them so tight they could barely breathe. "My babies," she sobbed. "My sweet babies." Robert walked over and put his big hands on the boys' heads. He did not say anything. He just stood there with his jaw clenched and his eyes wet. Mark watched his parents hold his sons. He felt relief wash over him. His family was here. His boys were safe. But he was not done yet. He still had to deal with Evelyn. He still had to make sure she left this house and never came back. Mark walked toward the house. The party continued behind him. Children played. Music played. But Mark had something he needed to do. He opened the back door and stepped inside. The house was quiet. Mark walked through the kitchen into the living room. Wrapping paper from Trevor's party was still on the floor. The bouncy castle was visible through the window. But Evelyn was not in the living room. Mark heard voices upstairs. He walked to the stairs and climbed them slowly. The voices were coming from the master bedroom, Evelyn's room. Mark reached the door. It was half open. He pushed it wider. Evelyn was throwing clothes into a suitcase on the bed. Trevor sat on the floor playing with one of his new toys. Evelyn's face was red and blotchy. She had been crying, but now she just looked angry. She saw Mark in the doorway. She stopped packing. "Get out of my room. We need to talk. I have nothing to say to you." Mark stepped inside. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out the envelope David Chen had prepared. The divorce papers. He held it out to Evelyn. "What is that?" she asked. "Divorce papers and a petition for full custody of Jake and Ben." Evelyn stared at the envelope. She did not take it. Mark walked forward and set it on the bed next to her suitcase. "You have no right," Evelyn whispered. "I have every right. You abused my sons. I have video proof. I have witnesses. You're done, Evelyn." Evelyn's hands were shaking. She looked at Trevor. The boy was not paying attention. He was focused on his toy. She looked back at Mark. "Where am I supposed to go?" "I don't care, but you're leaving this house. Today." "You can't kick me out." Mark's voice stayed calm, cold. "Yes, I can. This house is in my name. You have no legal claim to it. Read the papers. My lawyer explained everything." Evelyn picked up the envelope with shaking hands. She opened it and pulled out the papers. Her eyes scanned the words. Mark watched her face change as she read. Shock, fear, anger. "This says I can only see Trevor with supervision." "That's right. That's insane. No. What's insane is what you did to my sons. What's insane is throwing a party for your son on their birthday while they sat outside on the sidewalk." Evelyn threw the papers on the bed. "I want my own lawyer." "Fine, get one. But you're still leaving today." "No." Mark pulled out his phone. "Then I'm calling the police." Evelyn's eyes went wide. "You wouldn't. Watch me." Mark started dialing. Evelyn lunged forward and tried to grab the phone. Mark stepped back. His finger hovered over the call button. "Leave now," Mark said quietly. "Or I call them and show them the videos. Then you won't just lose custody. You'll be arrested." Evelyn stared at Mark's phone. Her face was pale. She looked at the divorce papers on the bed. Then she looked at Trevor playing on the floor. Her shoulders sagged. "Fine," she whispered. "I'll pack." Mark lowered his phone but kept it in his hand. "You have 1 hour." 1 hour? I have a whole house to pack. Then pack faster, or pack less. I don't care. But in 1 hour, you're gone." Evelyn's eyes filled with angry tears. She turned away from Mark and went back to throwing clothes in her suitcase. Mark watched her for a moment. Then he walked out of the room. He went downstairs and out the back door. The party was still going. Children were in the gaming truck. The DJ was playing music. Jake and Ben were sitting with their grandparents at a table. Linda was holding Ben's hand. Robert was listening to Jake talk about something. Both boys still had cake frosting on their faces. Mark walked over to his father. Robert stood up. "Is she leaving?" Robert asked quietly. "Yes, she has 1 hour." Robert nodded. "Good. Do you need me to stay inside and make sure she actually goes?" "No, I'll handle it. You stay with the boys." Mark walked back inside. He went to the living room and sat on the couch. He kept his phone in his hand. He set a timer for 1 hour. Then he waited. Upstairs, he could hear Evelyn moving around. Drawers opening and closing. Footsteps. She was packing. Mark looked at the clock on the wall. 5:30 in the evening. The party would go until sunset. Jake and Ben deserved every minute of it. 45 minutes passed. Mark heard Evelyn coming down the stairs. She was dragging 2 large suitcases. Trevor walked behind her carrying a backpack. Evelyn's face was red and puffy. She did not look at Mark. She dragged the suitcases to the front door. "I need to load these in my car." Mark stood up and unlocked the front door. Evelyn pulled the suitcases outside. Trevor followed. Mark stood in the doorway and watched. Evelyn's car was parked on the street. She opened the trunk and lifted the suitcases inside. Trevor got in the back seat with his backpack. Evelyn walked back to the house. She stopped in front of Mark. "I need my purse. It's in the kitchen." Mark stepped aside. Evelyn went to the kitchen and grabbed her purse from the counter. She came back to the front door. She looked at Mark. Her eyes were full of hate. "You're going to regret this." Mark's voice was calm. "The only thing I regret is meeting you." Evelyn's face twisted. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. She turned and walked to her car. She got in the driver's seat and slammed the door. The engine started. The car pulled away from the curb and drove down the street. Mark watched until it disappeared around the corner. Then he closed the front door and locked it. He stood there for a moment. His chest felt lighter. The house felt different, cleaner, safer. Evelyn was gone. She was really gone. Mark walked back outside to the party. Rosa saw him and smiled. She walked over. "Is everything okay?" "Yes, everything is perfect now." Rosa handed him a cold bottle of water. "Your sons are wonderful boys. They've been so polite and grateful. Every time we give them something, they say thank you." Mark looked at Jake and Ben. They were in the gaming truck now with Tommy and 2 other kids. They were wearing virtual reality headsets and laughing. "They're good kids," Mark said. "They deserved better than what they got." "Well, they have better now. They have you." Mark smiled. It was the first real smile he had felt in a long time. The party continued as the sun started to set. The Texas sky turned orange and pink. Parents stayed to help. Jennifer brought out gifts from her car. Other parents had brought presents too. They stacked them on a table. Jake and Ben saw the pile of wrapped boxes and their eyes went wide. "Are those for us?" Ben asked. "Yes," Mark said. "People wanted to celebrate your birthday." Jake looked overwhelmed. "But we didn't invite them. They came because they care about you." Linda called the boys over to the present table. All the children gathered around. Jake and Ben sat on chairs while everyone watched. They started opening presents. Tommy gave them a board game. Another friend gave them art supplies. Jennifer's gift was 2 superhero costumes, Iron Man for Jake, Captain America for Ben. The boys held them up and grinned. More presents were opened, books, toys, gift cards, soccer balls. By the end, Jake and Ben had a pile of gifts around their feet. They looked at each other with identical expressions of shock and joy. "Thank you," Jake said to everyone. "Thank you so much." Ben was crying happy tears. Linda wiped his face with a napkin and kissed his forehead. "You're welcome, sweetie. You both deserve this." Robert started gathering up the wrapping paper and putting it in a trash bag. Mark helped him. They worked quietly side by side. Robert looked at his son. "You did good today, Mark. I should have done it sooner." "Stop. You did it when you saw the truth. That's what matters." Mark nodded. He wanted to believe his father, but the guilt was still there, heavy in his chest. The DJ started playing slower music. Some of the younger children were getting tired. Parents started taking them home. They hugged Mark on their way out. They told him to call if he needed anything. Jennifer was one of the last to leave. She hugged Jake and Ben. "I'm so glad you boys had a good birthday." "It was the best birthday ever," Ben said. Jennifer's eyes got wet. She hugged them again. Then she took Tommy's hand and walked to their car. By 7:30, all the guests had left except for Rosa and her team. They started packing up the DJ equipment and decorations. Mark tried to help, but Rosa waved him away. "No, no. You stay with your boys. We'll handle this." Mark sat down at a table with Jake, Ben, Linda, and Robert. The boys were exhausted but happy. They leaned against their father from both sides. Mark put his arms around them. "Did you boys have a good birthday?" "Yes," Jake said. "The best," Ben added. "What did you wish for when you blew out the candles?" Jake and Ben looked at each other. They seemed to have a silent conversation. Then Ben spoke. "I wished that you would stay home forever." Mark's throat got tight. "What about you, Jake?" Jake was quiet for a moment. "I wished that we could be a family again, like before Mom died." Linda made a soft sound. She reached across the table and took Jake's hand. Mark pulled both boys closer. "I can't bring your mother back," Mark said quietly. "But I can promise you this. I'm never leaving you alone again. I got a new job here in Austin. I'll be home every single night." Jake looked up at him. "Really?" "Really. I start Monday. I'll drive local delivery routes. I'll leave in the morning and be home by dinner time, every day." Ben hugged Mark's waist. Jake wiped his eyes. "We missed you, Dad." "I missed you too. So much." They sat together as the sky grew darker. Rosa and her team finished packing. She came over to say goodbye. "Everything is loaded. We're heading out." Mark stood and shook her hand. "Thank you, Rosa. You have no idea what this meant to us." Rosa smiled. "Actually, I think I do. Take care of those boys." "I will." Rosa and her team left through the side gate. Their vans drove away. The backyard was quiet now. The superhero decorations still hung on the fence. The empty cake plates sat on the tables, evidence of a real celebration, a real birthday. Mark looked at his parents. "Do you want to stay the night? We have a guest room." Linda nodded. "Yes, we're not leaving you boys tonight." "Actually," Robert said, "we've been talking. We're thinking about moving to Austin, to be closer to you and the boys." Mark stared at his father. "Really? Really? We can help out. The boys need family around, and so do you." Mark felt emotion rise in his chest. He nodded. "I'd like that." They all went inside through the back door. The house was quiet, different. Evelyn's presence was gone. Her shoes were not by the door. Her jacket was not on the coat rack. The air felt lighter. Mark walked through the house and locked all the doors. He checked the windows. He wanted his sons to feel safe tonight. He wanted them to sleep without fear. Upstairs, Mark helped Jake and Ben get ready for bed. They brushed their teeth. They put on pajamas. They climbed into their shared bed. Mark sat on the edge and looked at them. "Tomorrow, we're going to make some changes." "What kind of changes?" Jake asked. "Good changes. We're going to sell this house. Too many bad memories. We'll find a new place. Maybe near Grandma and Grandpa." "Can we each have our own room?" Ben asked quietly. Mark's heart broke a little. "Yes. You can each have your own room, and we'll decorate however you want." The boys smiled. Mark tucked the blanket around them. He kissed both their foreheads. "I love you both, more than anything in the world." "We love you too, Dad," they said together. Mark turned off the light and left the door open. He walked downstairs. His parents were in the living room. Linda was picking up the last pieces of wrapping paper from Trevor's party. Robert was sitting on the couch. Mark sat down next to his father. He felt exhausted, but also relieved. Today had been the hardest and best day in a long time. "What happens next?" Robert asked. "The divorce, custody hearing. I have a lawyer handling it. With the video evidence, it should be fast." "Good." They sat in silence. Mark looked around the living room. This house had been his dream once, a place to raise his family, to make memories, but it had become a nightmare. He would sell it, start fresh, build something new, something safe. Mark's phone buzzed, a text from David Chen. "Got your message. Videos are perfect evidence. Court date set for Monday. This will be quick." Mark texted back. "Thank you." He put his phone down and closed his eyes. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, legal battles, moving plans, therapy for the boys. But tonight, his sons were safe. They were happy. They were home. That was enough. Mark woke up early Saturday morning. The house was quiet. He checked his phone. 6:15. He got out of bed and walked down the hall. Jake and Ben's door was still open. Mark looked inside. Both boys were asleep in their bed. They were holding each other. Their faces looked peaceful. Mark went downstairs. His mother was already in the kitchen making coffee. She smiled when she saw him. "Good morning." "Morning, Mom. How did you sleep?" "Not much." "But that's okay." Linda poured him a cup of coffee. Mark sat at the kitchen table. The house looked different in the morning light. Cleaner, safer, but also emptier. Evelyn had taken some things when she left. A lamp from the living room. A picture frame. Small things. Mark did not care. He wanted every trace of her gone. "What's the plan for today?" Linda asked. "I need to go to the police station. I want to file a formal report about what Evelyn did. The videos are evidence, but I want it documented officially." Linda nodded. "That's smart. Do you want me to watch the boys?" "Yes. I don't want them to have to relive any of this." Robert came downstairs a few minutes later. He sat at the table with Mark. They drank coffee in silence. At 7:30, Jake and Ben woke up. They came downstairs in their pajamas. Their hair was messy. They looked surprised to see their grandparents still there. "You stayed?" Jake asked. "Of course we stayed," Linda said. "We're having breakfast together. What do you boys want? Pancakes? Eggs?" "Pancakes," Ben said quietly. Linda started making pancakes. Real pancakes with butter and syrup. She made a huge stack. Jake and Ben sat at the table and ate until they were full. Mark watched them. He noticed they ate slowly, carefully, like they were afraid the food would be taken away. "You can have as much as you want," Mark said gently. "No one is going to take it." Ben looked at his father. Then he took another pancake. After breakfast, Mark got dressed. He put on jeans and a clean shirt. He grabbed his phone and his keys. The camera videos were saved on his phone. He had also backed them up to his email and a cloud storage account. He was not taking any chances. "I'm going to the police station. I'll be back in a few hours." Linda hugged him. "Be careful." Mark drove to the Austin Police Department on 8th Street. The building was large and gray. Mark parked and went inside. The front desk had a female officer sitting behind glass. She looked up when Mark approached. "Can I help you?" "I need to file a report. Child abuse." The officer's expression changed. She became more focused. "Okay, let me get someone to help you. Please have a seat." Mark sat in a plastic chair in the waiting area. 10 minutes later, a different officer came out. She was tall with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her uniform had a name tag that said, "Officer K. Mitchell." "Mr. Henderson?" Mark stood up. "Yes. I'm Officer Karen Mitchell. Come with me." Mark followed her down a hallway into a small office. Officer Mitchell closed the door and sat behind a desk. Mark sat across from her. "Tell me what happened." Mark took a deep breath. Then he told her everything. He told her about marrying Evelyn, about the cameras, about the abuse. Officer Mitchell listened without interrupting. She took notes on a pad of paper. When Mark finished, she looked at him. "Do you have evidence?" "Yes, video evidence, hours of it." Mark pulled out his phone. He opened the camera app and selected several videos. He handed the phone to Officer Mitchell. She watched silently. Mark saw her jaw tighten. Her eyes narrowed. She watched video after video. Evelyn yelling. Evelyn grabbing Ben by the hair. Evelyn locking the boys in their room. Evelyn feeding them plain rice while Trevor ate steak. When she finished watching, Officer Mitchell handed the phone back. Her face was hard. "This is clear evidence of child abuse and neglect. I'm glad you came in. We need to document this officially. What happens now?" "I'll file a report. I'll include the videos as evidence. You should also send copies to Child Protective Services. They'll open an investigation into Evelyn Carter. She's already out of the house. I gave her divorce papers yesterday. She left with her son. Good, but we still need this on record. If she tries to fight for custody or visitation, this report will be important. Officer Mitchell typed on her computer for several minutes. She printed out forms and had Mark sign them. She made copies of the videos from Mark's phone onto a department hard drive. The whole process took an hour. When they finished, Officer Mitchell walked Mark back to the lobby. "You did the right thing coming here. Those boys are lucky to have you." Mark nodded. He did not feel lucky. He felt guilty. "I should have seen it sooner." "Stop. You saw it when you saw it. Now you're protecting them. That's what matters." Mark drove home. When he walked in the front door, he heard laughter. He followed the sound to the living room. Jake and Ben were on the floor playing with their new toys from the party, building blocks and action figures. Robert was on the couch watching them. Linda was in the kitchen cooking something that smelled good. Mark sat down next to his father. "How did it go?" Robert asked quietly. "Good. It's all documented now. The police have the videos." Robert nodded. They watched the boys play. It was strange seeing them act like normal children, playing, laughing, making up stories with their toys. For so long they had been quiet and scared, but slowly they were coming back to life. The phone rang. Mark looked at the caller ID. It was David Chen, his lawyer. "Hello? Mark, it's David. I have some news. I filed the divorce petition this morning, emergency custody as well. Because of the video evidence, the judge expedited everything. We have a hearing scheduled for Monday morning at 9 o'clock. That fast? Child abuse cases get priority. The judge reviewed the videos I submitted. He wants to see you and Evelyn in court immediately. Will she be there? She has to be. I had the papers served to her an hour ago. A process server found her at a motel in San Antonio. Okay, what do I need to bring? Just yourself. I have everything else. The videos, the police report, witness statements from the parents at the party, everything." Mark felt relief wash over him. "Thank you, David. That's what I'm here for. See you Monday." Mark hung up. He told his father what the lawyer said. The rest of Saturday passed quietly. Mark spent the day with his sons. They watched movies. They played games. They ate lunch and dinner together as a family. Linda made spaghetti for dinner. Real spaghetti with meat sauce and garlic bread. Jake and Ben ate 2 helpings each. That night, Mark tucked them into bed again. They looked less tired tonight, less scared. "Dad?" Jake said. "Yes?" "Is Evelyn coming back?" "No, she's gone. And on Monday, a judge is going to make sure she stays gone." "What if she tries to come back anyway?" Mark sat on the edge of their bed. "She won't. But if she does, I'll call the police. They have videos of everything she did. They'll arrest her." Ben pulled the blanket up to his chin. "Promise?" "I promise. You're safe now. Both of you." Jake and Ben relaxed. Mark kissed their foreheads and turned off the light. He left the door open and went downstairs. His parents were sitting on the couch watching the news. "The boys asleep?" Linda asked. "Almost." Mark sat down with them. The news was talking about traffic and weather. Normal things. Mark realized how long it had been since he felt normal, since he felt like his life was not falling apart. He still had a long way to go. The divorce, selling the house, finding a new place, getting the boys into therapy. But for the first time in months, he felt hope. Sunday passed in a similar way, quiet and peaceful. Mark took the boys to a park near Zilker. They played on the swings and slides. Other children were there with their families. Jake and Ben were shy at first, but slowly they started playing, running, laughing, acting like kids. Mark sat on a bench and watched them. Robert sat next to him. "They're going to be okay," Robert said. "I hope so." "They will. Kids are strong, stronger than we think." Mark wanted to believe him. He watched Jake push Ben on the swing. Ben was laughing. The sound was beautiful. Mark realized he had not heard Ben laugh in months. maybe longer. That night, Mark laid in bed thinking about Monday, the court hearing, facing Evelyn again. Part of him was nervous, but most of him was just ready to end this chapter, ready to start healing, ready to give his sons the life they deserved. Mark closed his eyes. Tomorrow, everything would change, but this time, it would change for the better. Monday morning came fast. Mark woke up at 6 o'clock. He got dressed in a dark suit. It was the same suit he wore to his wedding with Rebecca years ago. He had not worn it since. It felt strange on his body, too formal, too tight. Mark went downstairs. Linda was already awake making breakfast. She looked at him and smiled sadly. "You look good." "I feel sick." "That's normal. But you're doing the right thing." Mark drank coffee but could not eat. His stomach was too tight. At 7:30, Jake and Ben came downstairs. They were still in their pajamas. They saw their father in the suit and stopped. "Where are you going?" Ben asked. Mark knelt down. "I have to go to court this morning. Remember I told you about the judge?" "Is Evelyn going to be there?" Jake asked. "Yes." Both boys looked scared. Mark pulled them close. "But she can't hurt you anymore. The judge is going to make sure of that. Grandma and Grandpa will stay here with you. I'll be home by lunchtime." "Promise?" Ben whispered. "I promise." Linda came over and put her hands on the boys' shoulders. "We're going to make cookies this morning. Would you boys like that?" Jake and Ben nodded. They hugged their father one more time. Then Mark stood up and grabbed his keys. Robert walked him to the door. "You've got this, son." "I hope so." Mark drove downtown to the Travis County Courthouse. It was a tall building made of gray stone. Mark parked in the garage and took the elevator up to the 4th floor. Family Court. He found the right courtroom and saw David Chen waiting outside. His lawyer was a thin man in his 50s with gray hair and glasses. He carried a leather briefcase. "Mark, good morning?" "Morning. Are you ready?" "As ready as I'll ever be." David opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. "I have everything we need. The videos, the police report, statements from witnesses at the party. The judge has already reviewed most of it. This should be straightforward." "Will I have to talk?" "Probably. The judge will want to hear from you directly. Just tell the truth. Stay calm. Don't let Evelyn get to you." Mark nodded. His hands were sweating. He wiped them on his pants. At 8:55, the courtroom doors opened. A bailiff stood in the doorway. "Henderson versus Carter. The judge is ready." Mark and David walked inside. The courtroom was smaller than Mark expected. Wooden benches, a judge's bench at the front, an American flag in the corner. Mark sat at a table on the left side. David sat next to him. Mark looked to the right. Evelyn was sitting at the other table with a lawyer, a man in a cheap suit who looked tired. Evelyn wore a black dress. Her hair was pulled back. She looked smaller than Mark remembered, older. Her eyes were red like she had been crying. Trevor was not there. Mark felt relieved. The boy did not need to see this. The bailiff spoke loudly. "All rise. The Honorable Judge Patricia Ramirez presiding." Everyone stood. The judge walked in. She was a woman in her 60s with short gray hair and dark eyes. She wore black robes. She sat at the bench and looked at both sides. "Please be seated." Everyone sat. Judge Ramirez opened a file in front of her. "This is a petition for emergency divorce and full custody filed by Mark Henderson against Evelyn Carter. I've reviewed the evidence submitted by Mr. Henderson's attorney. I've watched the video footage. I've read the police report." She looked at Evelyn over her glasses. "Mrs. Carter, I have to say, what I saw in those videos is deeply disturbing." Evelyn's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, my client maintains that the videos are taken out of context." "Sit down, counselor." The judge's voice was sharp. The lawyer sat. Judge Ramirez looked at Evelyn again. "Mrs. Carter, I watched you grab an 8-year-old child by the hair. I watched you lock 2 children in their bedroom for hours. I watched you feed them plain rice while your own son ate full meals. I heard you call them mistakes and tell them their mother made them cursed. What context could possibly justify that? Evelyn's face went red. She looked down at the table. Nothing to say? Judge Ramirez asked. Good, because I've heard enough. She looked at Mark. Mr. Henderson, please stand. Mark stood. His legs felt weak. Mr. Henderson, why didn't you report this abuse sooner? Mark's throat was dry. I didn't know, Your Honor. I worked long-haul trucking. I was gone Monday through Friday most weeks. I trusted my wife to care for my sons. I started noticing things a few weeks ago. Bruises, the boys being quiet and scared. I installed cameras to see what was happening when I wasn't home. When I saw the footage, I came home immediately. And you've since changed your employment? Yes, Your Honor. I quit long-haul trucking. I have a new job with a local delivery company here in Austin. I'll be home every night. Judge Ramirez nodded. She wrote something down. Then she looked at Evelyn's lawyer. Does your client have anything to say in her defense? The lawyer stood. Your Honor, Mrs. Carter has been under a lot of stress. She was trying to manage a household with 3 children, 2 of whom were not her biological children. The judge interrupted. Children who lost their mother 3 years ago. Children who needed care and love. Instead, they got abuse and neglect. She looked at Evelyn. Mrs. Carter, stand up. Evelyn stood slowly. She would not look at the judge. Do you want to keep custody of your son, Trevor? Evelyn's voice was barely a whisper. Yes. Then I suggest you get yourself into therapy and parenting classes immediately. Because if I hear one more report of you abusing any child, I will remove Trevor from your care as well. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. Sit down. Evelyn sat. She was crying now. Her lawyer put his hand on her shoulder. Judge Ramirez picked up her gavel. Based on the evidence presented, I am granting Mark Henderson full legal and physical custody of Jake and Ben Henderson. The marriage between Mark Henderson and Evelyn Carter is dissolved effective immediately. Mrs. Carter will be granted supervised visitation with Trevor only. She will have no contact with Jake or Ben Henderson. Mr. Henderson is not required to pay any spousal support due to the circumstances of this divorce. Mrs. Carter will attend mandatory parenting classes and therapy sessions. This case is closed. She banged the gavel. The sound echoed through the courtroom. Court is adjourned. Judge Ramirez stood and walked out. Mark sat frozen. He could not believe it was over. That fast. David put his hand on Mark's shoulder. Congratulations, your boys are safe now. Mark's eyes filled with tears. He wiped them quickly. Across the room, Evelyn was sobbing. Her lawyer was packing his briefcase. Evelyn looked at Mark. Her face was full of anger and hate. Mark looked back at her with nothing. No anger, no hate, just emptiness. She was nothing to him now. Mark and David left the courtroom. In the hallway, David shook Mark's hand. I'll file all the final paperwork this week. You should have official custody documents by Friday. Thank you, David, for everything. You did the hard part. You protected your sons. That takes courage. Mark drove home. It was only 11 o'clock in the morning. The whole hearing had taken less than an hour. Mark felt numb, relieved, but also exhausted. He pulled into his driveway and sat in his car for a moment. He looked at his house. Soon it would not be his house anymore. He would sell it, find a new place, start over. Mark went inside. The smell of cookies filled the air. He heard laughter from the kitchen. He walked in and saw Jake and Ben at the table with Linda. They were decorating cookies with frosting and sprinkles. The boys looked up and saw him. They jumped up and ran to him. Dad, you're back! Mark hugged them both. I'm back. What happened? Jake asked. Mark knelt down so he was eye level with them. The judge said you're staying with me. Forever. Evelyn has no rights to you anymore. She can't come near you. You're safe. Ben started crying. Jake hugged his father tighter. Mark held them both and did not let go. Linda wiped her eyes with a dish towel. She smiled at her son. Mark smiled back. They spent the rest of the day together, eating cookies, playing games, being a family. That night, Mark tucked the boys into bed. He sat between them and read them a story, something he had not done in months. When he finished, he closed the book. Tomorrow we start looking for a new house, somewhere with a big backyard, somewhere you can each have your own room. How does that sound? Good, Jake said. Really good, Ben added. Mark kissed their foreheads. I love you both. Sweet dreams. He turned off the light and left the door open. He went downstairs where his parents were waiting. It's really over, Mark said. Yes, Robert replied. Now the healing begins. Mark sat on the front porch of his house. It was a Tuesday morning in August. 2 months had passed since the court hearing. 2 months since Evelyn left. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks ago. Mark received the official papers in the mail. He put them in a file folder and never looked at them again. The boys were inside with Linda. Robert was in the garage packing boxes. Today was moving day. Mark had sold the house near Zilker Park last week. A young couple bought it. They had no idea what had happened inside these walls. Mark did not tell them. He just took their money and signed the papers. Linda and Robert had moved to Austin from Houston 6 weeks ago. They found a 4-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood on the north side of the city. Good schools nearby, a big backyard with trees. Robert and Linda bought it, and Mark and the boys moved in with them. It was not permanent. Mark was saving money to buy his own place. But for now, they were all together, and that felt right. A moving truck pulled up to the curb. 2 men got out. Mark stood and walked to meet them. We're here to load the furniture, one of the men said. Come on in. Mark led them inside. The house was mostly empty now. Furniture was still there, but everything else was packed in boxes. Pictures off the walls, dishes wrapped in newspaper, clothes in suitcases. Mark was taking some furniture to the new house. The rest he was donating or throwing away. He did not want anything that reminded him of Evelyn. Jake and Ben came downstairs. They watched the movers carry the couch out the front door. Is this really the last time we'll be here? Jake asked. Yes, Mark said. We're never coming back. Good, Ben said quietly. Mark looked at his sons. They had changed in 2 months. They smiled more. They talked more. They were still healing, but they were getting better. Mark had found a therapist for them, a woman named Dr. Sarah who specialized in childhood trauma. Jake and Ben saw her twice a week. At first, they did not want to talk. They sat in her office and stared at the floor. But Dr. Sarah was patient. She used art and games to help them open up. Slowly, they started talking. About their mother Rebecca, about Evelyn, about their fear and anger and sadness. Dr. Sarah told Mark that healing would take time. Years, probably. The boys had been through trauma. They would carry scars. But children were resilient. With love and support, they would be okay. Mark held on to those words. Love and support. That was his job now. That was all he could do. The movers worked for 3 hours. They loaded the truck with beds, dressers, the kitchen table and chairs. Mark watched them carry out the twins' small bed. The bed where Jake and Ben had held each other through so many terrible nights. Mark felt a flash of anger. He almost told the movers to throw the bed away. But then he remembered the boys sleeping peacefully in that bed, together, protecting each other. That bed had been their safe place. Mark decided to keep it, just in case they ever wanted it. By noon, the truck was loaded. Mark did one final walk through the empty house. He went room by room. The living room where Evelyn had thrown Trevor's party. The kitchen where she had fed the boys plain rice. The hallway where she had locked them in their room. The master bedroom where Mark had confronted her. Every room held bad memories. Mark was glad to leave them behind. He went upstairs to the boys' room. It was empty now, just bare walls and carpet. Mark stood in the doorway and remembered finding the birthday cards. The cards Jake and Ben had made for each other. Mark had kept those cards. He had them framed. They were packed carefully in a box in his truck. He planned to hang them in the hallway of the new house, a reminder of love and survival. Mark locked the front door for the last time. He got in his truck and followed the moving van to the new house. Linda and Robert had driven the boys ahead. When Mark pulled into the driveway of the new house, he saw Jake and Ben in the front yard. They were throwing a football back and forth. Robert was watching them. They looked happy, normal, like a regular family. Mark parked and got out. The movers started unloading the truck. Linda came out of the house. The boys picked their rooms already. Jake wants the one on the left. Ben wants the one on the right. They're next to each other. Good. Mark helped the movers carry furniture inside. Jake and Ben's beds went into their separate rooms. For the first time in their lives, they would sleep alone. Mark worried they might be scared. But when he asked them, Jake shook his head. "We're okay, Dad. We can still talk through the wall." Ben nodded. "And if I get scared, Jake is right there." Mark felt proud. His boys were growing, becoming braver. That night, after everything was unpacked, they had dinner together. Linda made spaghetti. They sat around the new kitchen table. Mark looked at his family, his parents, his sons. This was what mattered. Not the house, not the things, just the people. After dinner, Mark tucked the boys into their separate beds for the first time. He went to Ben's room first. The walls were bare, but Ben had already put up one drawing, a picture of him and Jake holding hands. Above them was their dad, and above him were Linda and Robert, the whole family. "I like this room," Ben said. "I'm glad. We can paint it any color you want." "Blue, like Captain America." "Blue it is." Mark kissed his forehead and left the door open. He went to Jake's room next. Jake was already in bed. His room had posters on the walls, superheroes and soccer players. "You okay?" Mark asked. "Yeah, this is better than the old house." "Much better." Mark sat on the edge of the bed. Jake looked at him. "Dad, are you okay?" Mark was surprised by the question. "Yes. Why?" "You seem sad sometimes." Mark took a deep breath. "I'm sad about what happened to you and Ben. I wish I had protected you better." Jake sat up. "But you did protect us. You came back. You made Evelyn leave. You gave us a real birthday." Mark's eyes got wet. "You're a good kid, Jake. Both of you are. We had to be good, or Evelyn would get mad." "You don't have to be good all the time anymore. You can make mistakes. You can be loud. You can be kids." Jake thought about this. Then he smiled. "Can I try out for soccer?" "Absolutely." 2 weeks later, Mark signed Jake up for a youth soccer league. Jake went to practices twice a week. He made friends with the other boys on the team. He scored his first goal in a game in September. Mark, Ben, Linda, and Robert all cheered from the sidelines. Jake ran to them after the game with the biggest smile. Ben started taking art classes at a community center. He drew pictures of families and houses and superheroes. His teacher said he had talent. Ben brought his drawings home and Linda put them on the refrigerator. Every single one. Mark started his new job with the local delivery company. He drove a smaller truck around Austin. He delivered packages to businesses and homes. The pay was less than long-haul trucking. But Mark was home every night by 6 o'clock. He had dinner with his sons. He helped with homework. He read bedtime stories. He was present. That was worth more than any paycheck. The months passed. Fall turned to winter. Christmas came. It was their first Christmas without Evelyn. Linda cooked a big meal. They opened presents under the tree. Jake got a new soccer ball. Ben got an art set with paints and canvases. Both boys got new bikes. They rode them around the neighborhood with Robert running behind them. Winter turned to spring. The boys finished 3rd grade. Their teachers said they were doing well. Their grades were good. They had friends. They seemed happy. Mark never heard from Evelyn. She did not try to contact him or the boys. He heard from David Chen that she was still in San Antonio, still living in a motel. She had completed her court-ordered therapy and parenting classes. She had supervised visits with Trevor once a week, but she never asked about Jake and Ben. Mark was glad. The further away she stayed, the better. 1 year passed. June 15th came again, the twins' 9th birthday. Mark did not throw a big party this time. He kept it simple, just family and a few close friends. Tommy came over with his mother Jennifer, a few other kids from school. They had a cookout in the backyard. Robert grilled hamburgers. Linda made a homemade cake, chocolate with vanilla frosting. The boys blew out 9 candles. They made wishes. They did not tell anyone what they wished for, but they were smiling, really smiling. That night, Mark sat on the back porch. The boys were inside playing video games with Robert. Linda was cleaning up the kitchen. Mark looked at the stars. He thought about Rebecca. He wished she could see their sons now, growing, healing, surviving. Mark heard the back door open. Jake and Ben came outside. They sat on either side of their father. "Good birthday?" Mark asked. "The best," Ben said. "Better than last year?" Mark teased. Jake laughed. "Last year was good too, but this year was normal, and normal is nice." Mark put his arms around both boys. They sat together in the quiet night. The next morning, Mark woke early. He went downstairs and made pancakes. Jake and Ben came down in their pajamas. They sat at the table. Mark put plates in front of them, pancakes with butter and syrup. The boys ate and talked about their plans for the day, soccer practice for Jake, art class for Ben. Mark watched them. His heart felt full. They were not the same boys from a year ago. They had scars, but they were healing. They were laughing. They were whole. Mark looked at the hallway. On the wall were 2 framed birthday cards, handmade with crayons and paper. "Happy birthday, Jake." "Happy birthday, Ben." Stick figures holding hands. Those cards reminded Mark of something important. Love survives. Even in the darkest moments, love finds a way. His family was smaller now, but it was real, it was safe, and it was finally, truly home. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen.